Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Banner and Backbone Vet Talk. I am Nick Perro, your host, and joined today by my good friend, colleague, and co host, Melissa Corrigan. How are you,
Hello,
Melissa?
hello. I am great. A
Good,
little bit tired
good.
after yesterday, but I'm
Yeah,
here.
so where were you yesterday? What happened? What did you do? You did something kind of big yesterday, and I'd love for you
Yeah, I
to
went to the spa
reintroduce it.
and got my nails done, and
Oh,
no,
did you?
I was in our nation's capital, getting down with some polite nonviolent resistance. But yeah, so Refuse Fascism has sort of formed a coalition of organizations, both national and local grassroots in DC, to kick off. Yesterday was the kickoff of a sustained resistance movement in DC. They are going to have a presence from here on out until Trump is gone. So there are a lot of organizations working together to have daily presence, daily activities. They're going up to the Supreme Court on Friday to stand outside and bear witness as they have that closed door discussion about marriage equality. So I
Mm,
love what they're doing, and I love the idea. This is what we've all been talking about, that there needs to be a sustained presence in DC. So that's what I was covering yesterday, the incredible, absolutely gorgeous autumn day in DC with thousands of people marching peacefully in the street.
It was fantastic to get to cover that with you and to see all of it yesterday. We did a special on Banner and Backbone for the sustained engagement which is until it's done, until
Yes,
it ends, and until we have our footing back to restore, rebuild, and revitalize a democracy.
right.
Um, and so then you made an interesting comment yesterday that you ran into someone that I have been discussing a lot about on various shows is Graham Plattner.
I did. I
Um,
ran into Graham Plattner and had a little chat with him.
and I would love to know how that conversation went and what your thoughts are on him, because he has a
It-
Nazi
yes,
tattoo on him, and I'm not cool with that.
yes,
And he's not really nice to women or had a history of not really being
right.
so pro woman.
Yeah, his Reddit comments were disappointing to say the least. But it was very, very brief. He was on the corner waiting for his car, and guy was in a sweatshirt and jeans. He now, maybe a couple weeks ago, I'd have been like, "That's so cool. He's so chill. He was just in a sweatshirt." And now I'm like, "You look like John Fetterman." So
Oh,
yeah, it's crazy how that goes. But the guy looked, I kind of did a double take and was like, Graham Plattner, and he kind of looked nervous, like, oh no, because I'm coming from the direction of the protests, and I'm sure he was kind of like, oh no, is she about to call me a Nazi? Like, I don't know. I shook the guy's hand, said thank you for your service. I don't think he has too much of a future in politics after that. I'm sorry. I just don't think there's going to be this groundswell of support for him, especially as someone that is not being supported by the Democratic establishment. Mom Donnie has the support of the people, and I'm afraid Graham Plattner has fractured that for himself. So, yeah,
well, I mean, that's what happens when you force people to sign NDAs after it comes out that you had a Totenkopf
right,
SS Nazi tattoo on you for 18 years that you never got covered up and you knew you had and you knew what it meant.
right.
And then during a election cycle, you decide, oh, now that it's known that I have it, I should get it covered up because people don't like that. Well, now is not the time to recuperate yourself in a fake recuperation attempt, John Fetterman 2.0, Graham Plattner. Bye, Felicia. Bye. We don't want you. We don't want you representing us.
Yes,
You're and I'll make sure that um, that I continue to call him out because, yeah, I think he's a John Fetterman too. I think he's a
yeah,
MAGA plant. I think that's what we need to be looking out for is people who are like him, who are just going to switch sides. And we can't vote people like that in. There's a
yeah,
difference between a Graham Plattner and a Joe Walsh. Like
right.
We know Joe. We
Right.
know Kinzinger. We know these people. We know what they are for and against and what they have a record of voting against. We don't know who
Right.
Greg Plattner is in any way.
And
The
it was
dude,
curious. I wondered why he was in DC. I didn't have time. I was like literally on my way to catch my train, and he was, waiting for his car. And so it was very, very brief. But
mhm,
I kind of wished that I had just a few minutes, 20 minutes to really talk to him and ask, what are you doing in DC? Are you are you here scrapping up endorsements? Like what's, you do a business here?
yeah,
Like what's going on? But the guy looked tired and a little bit I don't know what the word it like he definitely looked a little bit anxious as I approached him. Like I said, like I was gonna yell Nazi at him. So he was a little apprehensive.
off a step is probably good for him right now. Is have to be off a step because he deserves it.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's enough about Graham Plattner and the fact that you should not have Nazi tattoos,
Right.
Nazi symbols tattooed onto your body, and it is okay to have a red line that says if you have Nazi paraphernalia tattooed on you or openly displayed in your house as like a prized symbol, you should not represent the Democratic Party. Like,
Right.
you can run for office. I'm not telling him don't run for office, but go find a coalition that actually wants you. Like, if
Yeah.
that's what you want, go find a coalition that actually wants you and run for them. But don't do it under the Democratic Party name because I want to continue calling out Pete Hegseth for his Christo-fascist tattoos and his Crusader tattoos and his Nazi symbols and the hate that he does. And you can't do that if you have the same hate and symbols on our side. So,
Right.
moving on from Graham Plattner, we
Yes.
have a really important discussion that I wanted to start today.
I
Um,
just wanna say that's kind of how I handled it, like, moving on from Graham. Like, I shook his hand, said, "Thank you for your service," and then I looked at him and realized I couldn't say anything else in that moment that would be remotely polite. So I was like, "Well," and just walked off.
yep, yep. It's like I would. My parents taught me when I was a kid was if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all.
Exactly.
Sometimes I remember that phrase. Other
Yeah.
times, often you guys know that I don't. Um, yeah, big opportunity for the Democratic Socialist Party and the Democratic Socialist wing of the party is socialism ain't bad. Like, let's
Mhm.
start talking about
Right.
socialism for the rest of us and not just the rich people.
Right.
Um, and so, one of the things that goes into socialism for the rich is power and consolidation of power and military power and the use of military might and military power. Is Melissa is a Navy vet, and we are amassing a fleet of carriers and destroyers and interceptors and all sorts of other gunships and vessels and um, vessels that could carry land operations and invasion
Yeah.
forces into the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific to surround Venezuela and the Central American, southern end of North America and north end of South America. Um,
Right.
and I wanted to bring up a topic that you are very passionate about because you were in the Navy and it happened right near, as you were telling me before the show, that it happened right before you enlisted
Right.
and joined up. Can you talk about the USS Cole
Yeah.
and what your thoughts are on the title today, which was the makings of another USS Cole, and how you see what's going on, parallels, similarities, and what some of your concerns are? And I want to hand it over to you, Melissa, in a lot of ways to drive this conversation on the importance, the significance, and what it means today with what's going on.
Right. So for everyone who isn't really into US naval history, on October 12th of 2000, a couple of one or two, not sure, Al Qaeda operatives pulled a small speedboat alongside the side of the USS Cole as she was being refueled, and it was a suicide mission, blew themselves up, and it blasted a hole 70 feet high in the side of the Cole. 17 17 sailors died, and I believe 48 others were injured. The what's interesting is when we compare to today. So, well, let's go back and talk about, so 17 sailors passed away, and what the other sailors had to do in those moments is absolutely horrific, and really something that, like I said right before we came on, I had nightmares going right before I went off to Navy boot camp and joined the Navy, about the coal. I had nightmares because what the sailors had to do when you have a breach in the hull, you've got to close every possible hatch that has incoming water, and you have to close it in a matter of seconds. You have truly a matter of seconds, which means that there were sailors on the coal that had to close in their injured shipmates, and knowing that that was the end for them, and they had to close those hatches in order to keep the ship afloat. And that is horrific on all counts. It's horrific to think of a sailor being trapped in that space, being injured, and the space filling with water. It's horrific to think of closing. I'm literally getting an emotional, um, even contemplating something like that, thinking about having to close your shipmates in. Um, so when I went to boot camp, this was very much forefront of the discussion, was the coal safety. It really caused a shift in how, to my understanding, how watches were conducted in the Navy. And we actually had a simulation in boot camp that was built for us by people who designed animatronic rides at Disney. And we trained in a simulation of the coal, where there's a giant um, simulated room, and it fills with water, and you have to escape the space through any means, through a hatch or through a air vent. I'm claustrophobic. I had to go through the air vent. It was a tremendous day. That I made it through that day. Very proud that I made it and I did pass that part of training. But that's how important it was that they built a whole simulator for us to have hands-on training in how to survive an attack like that. So some things I want to point out that happened in October 12th of 2000, and um, we all know what happened the following September that truly kicked off our involvement in the Middle East after 9/11. So, right now, we have 18 ships deployed. So, I'm going to read all of the ships because there's a lot of reasons why this is notable, interesting. So, I'm going to go
Hmm.
through it. So, starting with the Ford, we now have an aircraft carrier that was sent with 4,500 personnel on board. We have the USS Jason Dunham, which is a guided missile destroyer with 300 personnel on board. We have the USS Gravely. We're going to come back to that. That's a DDG with 300 people on board. We have the USS Iwo Jima, which has a combination of 4,500 sailors and Marines. There are about 1,000 Marines on the Iwo Jima. There's a USS San Antonio, an LPD, with, again, 360 sailors and 699 Marines. So the USS Lake Erie has 363 sailors. The USS Stockdale, a DDG, has 380. Let me go back to that last one. The USS Lake Erie is a Ticonderoga class guided missile destroyer. So that's also important. The USS Stockdale, a DDG with 380 people. The USS Gettysburg with 350 people. The USS Wichita is what we call a new smart ship. Their technical name is a littoral combat ship, but we call them smart ships because they only have 75 people on board to run an entire ship. These are the most automated ships in the Navy. The USS Fort Lauderdale is an LPD. another amphibious ship. So this is the third ship now on this list, and that one is carrying 700 Marines with 383 sailors on board. The USS Minneapolis St. Paul is another smart ship with 98 sailors on board. The USS Sampson is a DDG with 300 sailors on board. This ship, I'm not going to name this ship. There's a ship in that's been confirmed in the Caribbean uh, that carries 50 civilian sailors and 169 special ops personnel. And the reason I'm not going to name this or go into that is this is a ship that is designed to look like a cargo ship, and it holds special ops personnel and equipment. Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, and then the USS Mahan, a DDG with 300. The USS Winston Churchill, another DDG with 203. The USS Bainbridge, another DDG with 300. US Mitchner, Mitcher, a DDG with 300 sailors, and the USS Forrest Sherman, also carrying 300 sailors. That's another DDG. So we have 3 amphibious ships in the area carrying, let's add this up, 700, 1,400, around 2,500 Marines. We have 18 ships parked in the area between the Panama and the Caribbean. When the Cole happened, there were 3 ships. And the motivation behind the Cole bombing was that they felt 3 ships was a threatening presence. We have 18 ships carrying a total of 15,100 sailors and Marines in the area of the Caribbean. Aside from that, we have national leadership at the FBI and the Department of Defense that have taken agents and specific personnel away from investigating and tracking terrorist threats. Let me where's my phone? Because I want to pull up what my source in the DoD said verbatim about the threat of terrorist activity right now, because we have the FBI taken off the anti-terrorist threat, because we have a frat boy running the DoD who has also removed resources. So let's see, the terror threat level in Southcom is relatively low, but this is exactly the sort of thing that invites terrorist activity. A fundamental lack of congressional oversight and keg's breath desire for PR opportunities is deeply concerning.
Yeah.
So this is, and then I'm going to go backwards and look through the more sharp lenses of our history and of looking back through our life. And it's very difficult for me to look at the Cole and not wonder at this point if that was not a false flag that failed to ignite the public's passion enough to warrant an invasion of the Middle East. And so the following September, they tried again.
So let's talk about what's going on and how that could parallel in the US, because we need to talk about false flags all the time. Like the idea of a false flag is something that I talk about a lot. And so a false flag is where we do an operation pretending, or we pay for an operation to be done, pretending to be the bad guy, which sparks a war. It's a wag the dog situation where you take the dog's tail and wag it for them and smack them in the face until they bite you, and then go, "Ow, that dog bit me. We need to put it down." No, right. You fucking instigated that dog to bite you. And that's what we're doing. That's what this would be. And so I want to talk a little bit, before we get too far into the history, is how do you see, or what are your thoughts on the reporting that had come out? I think it was last week, was, and I take everything that the Venezuelan government says with a grain of salt. You always have to. We have to take everything that
Right.
these propaganda governments take with a grain of salt. However, I'm going to take this one with a grain of salt and still ask the question, because we know that our government wants to create a false flag event so that they can spark a war. Specifically, Stephen Miller has always wanted to bomb brown people. Like, that's
Yeah.
his wet dream, is to bomb people in Central America. He just wants to kill them. He doesn't like them. He's a shitty ass person. What are your thoughts on what happened, or the reportings that came about the USS Gravely that was parked on Trinidad and Tobago's one on their coastline, and Venezuela announcing, their government announcing, that they had stopped a CIA-backed plot to bomb, to do
Yeah.
perform a basically a USS Cole on the USS Gravely while it was docked in Trinidad and Tobago.
Right.
So what are your
This
thoughts on that, and where it might lead if they try and do something like that again, or when they try to, possibly, is, what do you think if that doesn't ignite a war, or doesn't ignite enough of a war for them? What do you then think the next step is? Because that's really important.
um first of all, I am at this point wouldn't rule anything out with our current regime. And the frustrating thing is, and this goes back to having an absolutely muted media in this country, is that I've been able to find two articles that I think are from fairly legitimate sources about the Venezuelan president claiming that they have arrested operatives that were engaged in a US driven false flag um, plot against the USS Gravely. And I don't know. I mean, I don't find it beyond the realm of possibility at all. But here's the thing, I would love to actually be able to find legitimate sources, to have legitimate investigative reporters digging into this who have the funds and the money and the backing and the ability to actually go into Venezuela and do actual journalism and investigation to find out if there's any truth to this. If there's CIA operatives being held there, somebody's going to talk. Somebody at the prison, or the, wherever they're being detained, somebody is
Mhm.
going to be willing to talk. But it takes those investigative reporters to get on the ground there and do that work. And this is the work where, the New York Times used to pay people who would go do those type of things, and now they're soft and the mouthpiece of the regime, like every other media entity. So my concern is that we will never probably actually know the truth of it until someone has that ability to actually dig in, and that'll be probably years down the road before we can actually find out the truth of it. I will say that
The
it's
sad part
all
is, before you go on cutting in, the sad part is, I think we have networks that could do that, that have the power to pay reporters to go do these things. Midas Touch has the money to do that. Like,
right,
y'all have the money, the Bulwark, you guys have the money. Like, these, you big groups like this, use it, do that, do the accountability thing, because if you can
right,
prove that it's going on and that it's happening, and you can prove it without a shadow of a doubt, pay somebody who's good, pay Ellie Leonard or Melissa Corrigan to do investigative work here in the US. Pay other people who could go down to Venezuela to do it. You already do it with Ken Harbaugh to go to Ukraine. Why not get somebody to go to Venezuela and
and
do
find
that?
out.
Pay
Right.
Arturo Dominguez to do it. Like, he would be a fucking amazing reporter down there. He'd find the truth. Like, people, but Banner and Backbone doesn't have the money to do that yet. Banner and
And the
Backbone Media can't do that yet, but
Yeah,
we're
and the
trying.
and the really disgusting thing is something else I looked into with each one of these ships. Being a sailor and looking into, this is 15,100 of our servicemen and women who are now deployed through the holidays for what is essentially our military leaders' personal game of fucking battleship. Okay.
Yeah.
18 fucking ships in an area that size is absurd. It's and not to mention, like someone said a while back in the chat, they've pulled the Ford Strike Group away from the mission that they do, that is a regular mission of the United States Navy to maintain a peaceful presence in the Med and around the world, in the Pacific and elsewhere. So pulling their entire strike group out of the Med and leaving that vacuum there, once again, it's like pulling US aid out of third world countries. You're losing the space that you have, the presence that you have. In the case of the Med, this is a strong presence, a hard presence. In the case of USAID, it's a soft presence. But they work together in order to
Hmm.
maintain a presence around the world. So we're dealing with people that have very little strategic brilliance, okay, obviously here, because we're leaving ourselves vulnerable to attack from so many different angles and so many different sides. And when I look at how much these people have deployed already, the USS Gravely, it was interesting to me that this is who was allegedly targeted for this false flag plot, because they deployed for 9 months and fought the Houthis off the coast of Yemen, and have been engaged in the most active combat, naval combat, since World War II. A 9 month deployment of heavy combat, and they just got home and they're sent right back out to do this. That's just really fucked up to do to those sailors.
Yeah.
Um, and so to redeploy them, to basically do a turnabout, deploy them again for an undetermined amount of time, and to further then allegedly plan to attack that ship. And if the plan was a false flag, then the plan was to murder US sailors. And it's
Yes.
totally unconscionable to me, that obviously it's unconscionable for a country to plan to attack its own ship. But to pick a ship that has had the most active naval combat since World War II out of any ship in the fleet, these people are already battle weary. And to further that, I mean, it's totally, and I see the chat saying, why is it Venezuela? What's the goal? Maybe it's oil. Maybe it is. Maybe it's
Hmm.
intimidation of the area. You find an easy way to intimidate, and begin
Maybe
that.
it's just Stephen Miller being a racist who wants to bomb the Central American countries with no end game. And we also
Right.
have to think that that is a valid possibility. Is there's no real end game here for the most likely. That one of our subscribers asked in the chat was, is the U.S. trying to control their production of oil? Blah, after all of that, like, what will be the deal? Or like, where would they go to try to get into Venezuela to attack? Caracas is up in the mountains, has few major towns, lots of poor towns on the coast. It's a lot of jungle. It's very Vietnam. It's very
Yes,
Vietnam
it
2.0,
is.
just with okay. But like, there's no plan, there's no end game. That's one of the things we have to
None.
remember, is this doesn't have an end game other than control and power. That's all they care about. They don't care about the destruction in their wake. It's just, how do they consolidate control and power.
And they're
So
allegedly there, for narco counterterrorism activity, and only 2 of these ships are the 2 smart ships are specifically designed and assigned for that duty. And the Coast Guard is all that's what the Coast Guard, like,
yeah,
exists
that's their job.
for, is to defend our borders, most against immigrant, coming by sea, and drugs. This is what the Coast Guard exists for. So
Hmm.
it's truly baffling to me when you have a Coast Guard full of ships that are designed to do this activity, that have been doing this activity, that know the terrain, that know the parties involved. That's their area of expertise, and a couple of these Navy ships. Um, but to but to get 18 ships, and also 3 of them to be amphibious, and again they're carrying uh, at least 1,600 Marines. Why are
Yeah.
you carrying Marines? There was only one reason we carried Marines. back in the day, and that was to put them in Iraq.
Yeah, that's an
Ground.
invasion force. That's a deployment force. That's the first strike groups. Like Marines
Right,
are the first boots on the ground always in an
right.
official like combat situation. In American history at this point, Marines are always first on the ground, last to leave. That's how they do it. So thinking on the USS Cole side though, with like how insider attacks or just hurting sailors and the fact that they're grouping a bunch of carrier and strike groups into one area. And we're in the age of drones. And drones have a habit of being really, really hard to hit and really, really easy and cheap to produce. Can you
Yeah.
talk about how that might be an impact on what's going on? And then maybe go into why some of the specific ships are stationed there, and what their like the meanings of them are all about.
Right. I mean, the need to have an aircraft carrier is very curious to me. To my knowledge, there's never been an aircraft carrier deployed for any type of narco traffic activity. That's very excessive. So that part, and
Mhm.
then sending an entire strike group, the entire carrier strike group, and you're right with the coal. So with the drones. So when the coal happened, there was an admission on the part of the Navy that certain practices around watches, etc., had gotten a bit lax. People had gotten comfortable. It had been many, many years since there was a naval attack of any kind on a Navy ship. That was the training that we received. We got a lot of watch training in boot camp and a school, specifically because of the coal. And we were just told about it just constantly. If you fall asleep on watch, if you are that guy that's not paying attention. But you got to remember, like, the ships are also equipped with tools to detect, with sonar, with radar, with all kind of tools to detect that don't just rely on human eyes. Okay. So, in terms of drones, I mean, I feel like there's tech solutions that I'm sure exist that are more advanced from when I was in to combat drone technology. And that would be automated, sort of not really reliant on a human seeing something and engaging something, but they're probably more automated systems. However, if there were to be a really targeted, large scale drone attack, then yeah, you kind of just scared me because I literally hadn't even thought of that.
Well, I bring it up because Shane talks a lot about the Shane Yurick, our good friend, also on Banner and
Yeah.
Backbone, who's right now doing a show with Ellie Leonard. So make sure you catch that replay when you're done watching our show. Is catch Shane's replay later too. We love Shane and Ellie, but Shane talks a lot about drones and some of the systems that are used in them and who owns them and how it's always 2 degrees removed from Peter Thiel
Right.
in the end.
Right.
Um, is where do you see or do you see, I don't know if you've even looked into it because I just sparked your interest on the drone side now, or your nightmare meter on the drone
Yes.
side,
Uh-huh.
is do you see this playing into possibly the overall tech takeover of the military and how Peter Thiel and his group maybe work into some of these things? Do you think this could be like their way of practicing drone strikes or drone defense technology?
Perhaps, yeah, they could very well be testing drone defense technology, but now I'm starting to wonder if part of this isn't to do a land invasion, a ground invasion, to establish a techno center there in South America.
Interesting. Interesting. Because that would be an interesting one because we I mean, we just paid $40 billion to Argentina, but they get a lot from China already, and they're not under our control in any real way. Um, but I don't. I mean, yeah, I could see that. God, that's scary. That's a scary thought. Um, do you? So I don't. I what do you see comes next? Is really the big question. Is, let's say there is an attack. Let's say the U.S. either has a false flag or something, and they move quickly enough that there's no questions that can be asked, and nobody
Right.
stops them from then taking the next step of just bombing Venezuela and invading them. What do you see coming after that? Because I don't believe that the U.S. will game plan just for a second. We'll gameplay this out, or war game this a little bit for a second. Is there are two options, or there are a couple options in my mind that come out of this. The first one is that the U.S. populace has really, really strong pushback against this and demands transparency very quickly on what happened to the vessels or whatever happens, and that the administration is ordered to stop. And if they don't, maybe Congress grows a fucking backbone for once. Um, but I think there's going to be enough pushback. That's one option. The other option is we're far enough down the rabbit hole that there's really no pushback, and they're just allowed to do this, and we don't know if it's ever a false flag or something like that. Which of those two options do you think might be
Well,
more probable at
it's
this
all
point
gonna
in
hinge
your eyes?
on the American people knowing. Like, that's the thing. This all goes back to the media failing us is truly profound in so many ways, and this is exactly one of those ways, because if the American people don't know anything and they see a little news article below the fold of the newspaper saying that America has, bombed Venezuela because as a retaliation for this, whatever. What I've noticed is that people don't really pay attention unless it directly involves American territory, like 9/11. So because the amount of times I see articles that are just little blips, and it's talking about how American sailors or soldiers died, how four of them died, and there's nothing. There's no response whatsoever. The American people either think, "Oh, that's just par for the course. We're going to lose some every year." They don't ask more questions. They don't dig into it. It's very important that veterans are becoming essentially or serving the role of military correspondents right now, because we need to continue and continually explain to civilians why these things are a big deal, why this is important, how this is going to impact the American people. Just the sheer fact that 15,000 American soldiers and or sailors and Marines won't be home for Thanksgiving, and nobody in the national media is talking about that. That's a big fucking deal. That's a
Yeah.
big fucking deal that 18 ships are currently deployed at the same time in the same place through the holidays. And, this is not even a national discussion.
And
The, the
during that time,
Everyone has to inform the American people so that they can even have an opinion on it.
yeah, and during that time too. Sorry, I cut you off there for a second. Was during that time too, Pete Hegseth kicked out the entire Pentagon journal staff, news agency staff, except
Right.
for the one that said they would do propaganda for the Pentagon. That's dangerous as shit, because those are the people who would ask questions, that would say, hey, why did this happen? What went on? And demand answers. And that's the voice of the people in that room that's now no longer there.
And the
Plus
order that it happened
NDAs.
in,
Yeah. And all the
asking them to sign
NDAs
a
that are
loyalty
being
pledge
done.
and then turning around and deploying removing the Ford strike group, the whole strike group from the Med and moving it down. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's only so much. There's a question in the chat of our Intel community. Well, our Intel community can only do so much, because they will be prosecuted if they leak intelligence. The thing about the laws that we have is they don't apply to those at the top. We've seen that. But they do really strictly apply to all the rest of us.
Yeah.
And so leaking intelligence is a severe punishment. Like, I was a human intelligence collector. I trained on intelligence collection, gathering, reporting, and how not to disseminate information that you're not supposed to. Oh, you mean the destruction of intelligence? That's already happened. Like, Tulsi Gabbard is our director of national intelligence, and she is a puppet of the Russian government. Like, they call her Russia's girlfriend, like, or Russia's little sister. Like, we don't have a professional intelligence community right now. We have a bunch of sycophants that are running the show, and probably, yes, dismissing or deleting intelligence reports that, if they are deleting them, that's super, super illegal. Like, super
Right.
illegal. There has to be congressional approval, and, like, there has to be records approvals that go all the way up the chain. And if they're just getting approved to delete records, like, we are still waiting on anybody other than us asking the question on a major network of what happened to the two men that survived the bombing of I think it was the 14th vessel that we bombed. Two men
Right.
survived. They went onto a Navy carrier or a naval ship. They were treated as enemy combatants who were wounded, which we do have to take care of. There are strict rules around that. And then they were released, and there was no information provided. And there are incredibly strict guidelines on human care and how you handle detainees. That's what they were. They were enemy combatants, which makes them a detainee, because we detained them in a combat situation. And now there are responsibilities. And there's a lot of procedure and stuff that goes into that. And nobody in the national media, Midas Touch, Bulwark, none of those major groups are calling that out. None of them are demanding that we see what happened to those two men. Why were they released? What is their current status? Where is their care? We have to maintain those records. That is international law. That's
Right.
not just US, that is international law. What happened to them?
And
I'd
the
like to know, but doing a FOIA won't do any good.
and Reuters broke the story that there were individuals on that ship that were asked to sign NDAs. If you have a security clearance, what's an NDA for? That's
Yeah,
a
like,
that's a standing NDA. So why are you asking people with any level of security clearance to also like that that just is like pointing to ineptitude, like you don't know how security clearances work or you don't know. I mean,
yeah, like,
it
let's break down a security clearance real quick for everybody who wants to know what it means to have a security clearance. There's classified, there's secret, and there's top secret. Then there's secret compartmentalized information, which is where most of the most important shit in the world goes, is compartmentalized information, such as, we have that on ourselves in the US government. Is we keep top secret compartmentalized information separate from one another in various agencies that Doge stole and aggregated for Peter Thiel into a single spot. That should never have happened, because that is secret compartmentalized information.
right,
And the way that that security clearances actually work is you need to have a need to know and the clearance to look at it. You have to have both. You can't just look at shit. You
yeah,
can't just go in and say, "Oh, I want to look at JFK assassinations or 9/11 information or what have you." You have to have a need to know. And that need to know includes, don't fucking say anything, because you'll go to prison for the rest of your life for revealing classified
right.
information.
So that's a
I have an
standing NDA.
NDA. Like, I have an NDA from the military because I no longer have a security clearance. I have an NDA that says I cannot disclose any of the information that I learned in the military for 150 years. Like, you sign an NDA that goes 50 years past the expected date of my death if I were to hit 100. Like,
Right.
so you don't need a fucking NDA while you're in,
But that kicks
unless.
in after your security clearance expires, like that ND so making people with active security clearances that are active duty also sign an ND it's just so
So
bizarre and
my question is
highly unusual.
are they going to court martial and remove those sailors and service members who were in there? Because if you signed an NDA, Once your security clearance is removed, then you still aren't legally allowed to talk about it. Yes, they would also have to sign an NDA leaving the military anyway. So I don't know the purpose of this NDA other than they're pointing to specific individuals and saying, we're going to put a spotlight right on you. And
Right.
I think that's because those people went to their chain of command and said, hey, I think something's going wrong. And
Right.
somebody in that chain of command then said, well, you can't talk about it.
Right.
And that means an officer or a group of officers has failed really, really badly along the
Yes,
way.
I would agree.
Really badly, because officers should never allow their service members to get illegal orders. It is your duty and your responsibility. You swore an oath to it to never give an illegal order to your service members. That applies to you, SecDef, Pete, dumb fuck. Like,
Right.
you're a piece of shit and you swore that oath too. So you should uphold it, but they're not. And all of this revolves around is how worried we are that they're going to try something stupid
Yes,
and
there's a
hurt our own
sense of,
service members.
to me, with that whole situation, there's a sense of, um, I know it's not shame because they don't have any shame, but if you're trying to cover up your activities to that degree, to have active duty sailors sign NDAs, you know what you're doing is wrong.
There's
You know
appeal.
it's against anything from the UCMJ to international law. You know what you're doing is wrong,
Mhm.
and that would be the only reason that you would, force the issue on that. And so if you're engaging in activity that violates international law, when you have 18 of our ships in this region, of course you are setting a ripe scenario for a terrorist attack.
Yeah.
There's no other way to interpret that.
They're inviting a terrorist attack, is what they are
They
at
are.
this point. It's either a self-inflicted terrorist attack or it's going to be self-inflicted no matter what. It's going to be either a
Right.
manufactured one or one. And that's the fear we have, or I
How
have.
many
Melissa seems to share.
how many ships are how many fishing boats are we at now that they have?
I think we're over 20. The last I heard was 20 at minimum.
And I
And
feel like that
it's like
in itself,
70 something. I think it's like 75 people we have killed at least. Like extrajudiciously. There is
yes,
no the UCMJ still says we have to follow the laws of unless you're like in like if you're shooting at somebody, there's still rules of engagement. We don't seem to have any. Like
right.
I don't know. I mean, maybe I have to look into it more deeply, but there's not a lot of rules of engagement that have been established
No,
or decided upon. And this is really where Congress is actually supposed to step in a lot of ways. Is Congress is supposed to mandate that these are done before we start conflicts. And that's why Congress is so important. And that's why it's their Article 1 power to leverage war, is because it's the people's voice that says yes or no. But Congress shut down and said, yeah, Pete, dumbass, you can go throw your kegger on fucking 18 of our naval vessels in the Caribbean with over 15,000 sailors and Marines who are going to be gone for Thanksgiving, Christmas,
yes,
Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, the New Year, probably anniversaries, birthdays, family events, all of that. Nobody's talking about that.
and
I
it's
do
occurring.
remember us always talking about it during 9/11, post 9/11, though, that people were gone all the time and how sad it was and how unfortunate that we're still doing this. Well, then why the fuck are we trying to start another one? Like
Right.
we just got out of a 20-year war. And that's the thing I think that people need to hold on to and really advocate for. And you can take action for this is call your senators and your representatives and say, get the fuck back to work and do some
Yes.
oversight and do your Article 1 powers in Congress to do some oversight and accountability of what's going on
At
in the
the very
military.
least, the Defense Oversight Committee should be meeting right now. Why do you have 18 ships in one region and the
Yeah.
Defense Oversight Committee is not meeting every day to maintain oversight over what's going on. And going back to the fishing, if over 20 fishing boats, so that's a provocation. That's a repeated provocation. Donald Trump even said jokingly, like he laughed when someone said, what about people who are fishing that need to fish, that people whose livelihoods depend on going out fishing? And he laughed and said, well, they won't fish. Like, I don't care. I don't care if you don't eat. I don't care if your family business of fishing is interrupted. If you go out on a boat, we're just going to blow you up. And so
Yep.
that's going to set the scene for a narrative that, these fishermen are going to get pissed off. So they're going to attempt to fight back. And then when I go back and look at the Gravely and how much they've been deployed, and they were deployed in such an active area, and they were actively engaged in active combat, they're tired. They're tired. So
Mhm.
you send a tired crew and deploy them for an indeterminate amount of time. And of course, you're setting the scene where maybe somebody falls asleep on watch. Maybe they slip because they're fucking exhausted and they're not getting the reprieve that they should be getting. A lot of these ships have been deployed heavily over the past year and a half, and they're not getting the reprieve that they need. And now they're deployed for what is, to my understanding, an indeterminate amount of time. There is no end date on this naval occupation we have of the Caribbean.
Yeah. And that's one thing too is the Navy has a very strict scheduled rotation set that they do to ensure their sailors get home and actually see their families. Like my cousin is in the Navy. I know he was out 6 months in 6 months. Like that is a schedule. That is what they kept. They did that. And sometimes it might be 9, but they always had an end date. You always knew when you were coming home.
Right.
Wars like this, even the 20-year war we did in Afghanistan and Iraq, guess what, y'all? We rotated troops on a consistent annual 6-month rotation basis, or 18 during the height of the war. I think it was up to like 13 or 18 months.
Yeah.
But there was an end date. There was always a date you knew you were coming home, because you have to know that you're going to go home and see your family again, or else what the fuck are you fighting for? And then you're going to slip. Like Melissa said, is if you stop believing in what you're fighting for, you get lazy and you get complacent. If you don't even believe in it at all, you don't
Right.
even want to be there.
And
Most of
then
these
these
folks
sailors
might
don't
not want
know
to be
why
there.
they're there. Like that's one thing I'm consistently getting from my contact in the DoD who is affiliated with the Navy, that nobody knows what they're doing. Nobody knows why they're there.
Mhm.
They're being made to sign NDAs. They're being, you know, essentially they're being given. I will say that I will go so far as to say that we have confirmation that they have been given unlawful orders, and and they don't know what they're doing. And in the case of this one incident, this guy just wants to retire. He's given 20 years of his life to the military and he wants to get out. And
Mhm.
they're being put in impossible situations and asked to violate existing protocol, at minimum protocol, at most law. And nobody knows what's going on or why we're doing this. Why are we, and I tell you what, deploying 18 ships through the holidays with no end date and no fucking reason is that's the quickest way to kill morale in the Navy. That's the
I was going to
quickest
ask.
fucking way.
I was going to ask. That was going to be my next question. Is you're on a Navy vessel for you were on one for a determinate amount of time.
Right,
Now imagine you're on one for an indeterminate amount of time. And we don't even really know if there are submarines in the area, too. And
right.
submariners, their life kind of sucks. You're
That's
in a giant
classified.
penis underwater,
Right.
just stuck there until you're done. And you don't see the daylight until you're done, basically.
Yes.
Um, is how do you think all of this is impacting the morale of those who, or how do you, or what are you hearing from your sources about is what the morale actually is like in the Navy, and those who are deployed there, and are there people who are working to really end these illegal orders and push back and do something about it?
The
that you
morale's
could talk about it?
horrible. The morale's horrible. I mean, people don't know what's good. There have been rumors, and I'm working to confirm some rumors that I've heard with the government shutdown. I got information from a sailor's child, who is 18, who alleges, according to his parent, they had to go attend a training to get paid. Right. So I'm in the process of sort of working with that person to see if they're comfortable speaking to me, expounding upon what type of training, or was it just true
Yeah,
that you had to go to a training and complete that training before you got your paycheck, which we know is from a private donor? What is in that training?
yeah.
So,
And do
and
you
that
know if your
could be
paycheck was
NDAs. That could be the NDAs that's being referenced, that you had to sign an
mhm,
NDA in order to receive your paycheck, which what the fuck?
yeah. Also, do you do the do the question could be and needs to be investigated, and these service members wouldn't know the answer to is, did the money that they receive come from a private donation? Which is, by the way, super fucking illegal for a reason. And I've talked about this too, is we fund the military specifically through public funds so that they always remember who pays them. Because
Right,
at the end of the day, the service members in all of history only care who pays them. It's
right.
where they get their food and their housing from, and they can support their families. And that's all they want is the money to support their family. And if you start giving that from private donations, they stop being a military and they become a mercenary force. And
They are a
we
mercenary
cannot
force.
allow our military to become mercenaries to the highest corporate bidder,
Right.
because then we do get tech fascism in Venezuela as a new tech fascist capital of the world, and Bitcoin mining bullshit and oil production so that they can run their Bitcoin mines and shit like that. Whatever they want to do, that's what they'll
Right.
do.
Because
Um,
I think the election, a couple days ago, I think the general atmosphere is letting it be known that the American people are not cool with what's going on right now. This is not welcome in our country, between the techno fascism, like all of it. It's not welcome. So
mhm.
maybe they are eyeballing other options. Okay, well, how can we move this little operation somewhere else where the people aren't as
Aren't going to stop us.
outspoken as the American people?
Hmm. Yeah. And I think one of the things we have to maintain, and that's where we maintain our hope in all of this and the fact that we continue moving forward, is the American people are loud, and we do not have a history of accepting tyrants. We
Right.
do not have that history. We overthrew a king, we overthrew slavery, we've overthrown a lot of tyrannical things in this country. We've overthrown the idea that we need to put indigenous people into schools and turn them white and disappear them. We've gone through authoritarian movements in our country, fascist style movements in our country. We can end this one too, and it's on the American people to speak out. And that's where we need to be really powerful. And I want to, before we close this out, I want to, and then give Melissa a chance to promote herself and all the great work she's doing, is let it be known your feelings on what's being done and the impact that it's having on the service members. Remember, we do care about the service members. I do care what happens to my brothers and sisters and others in arms. I do care. I want
Deeply.
them to be home. I deeply value them because I lost friends when we were searching for the traitor Bo Bergdahl. I lost friends when I knew people who who were impacted by that. I'm impacted by that. We found that fucker with our own lives.
Right.
And then Trump let him go, pardoned him,
Right.
basically, got him off the hook. He has a history of shit like this where he likes war criminals and people who do the most obnoxious and worst things. This is what they want, is we can't, and we have to express our anger against it. But you have to let the service members know that you value and care about them.
Yes.
And it's the policies and it's the warmongering and it's the Republican fascism and totalitarianism and imperialism and empire that the Republicans want. It's not against the service members themselves. A lot of them are standing up to do the right thing and they're just confused and scared because their officers aren't doing what they need to, or they're
Exactly.
just as confused and scared, which
Right.
they need our support, knowing that we support them, but not the mission. And
Yes.
that's where we have to be key. But we need bigger networks to help us. We need larger voices to amplify what Melissa said today, to take clips of what we said and put it out there so others can see. Because what Melissa has been saying today is super important information that nobody is really talking about, that there's not enough being pointed to, because we could demand transparency. We could put someone on the ground in Venezuela. We could put someone on the ground in Colombia or other countries to actually report on this.
Right.
But the pro democracy side is right now choosing not to.
Right.
We need to force them to choose to do that, because we have 15,000 sailors and Marines who are going to be in the Caribbean for their holidays instead of being with their families on a mission that they have no idea what the fuck they're doing there, why they're there, and they're being told they need to sign secrecy agreements outside of the scope of their normal clearances. That's what that NDA is saying you need to sign something and be secret about it outside of the normal scope of your work, which means you're doing
Right.
something fucking wrong. Like, that's Abu Ghraib. That is torture. That is us waterboarding detainees. And that is that. That is what this is representing. And we need to
Right.
demand transparency. So we're going to continue here on Banner and Backbone, but we're going to ask our friends in other networks and in larger platforms to help us spread this awareness. Um, and part of spreading that awareness is supporting each other and getting each other the opportunities to grow. And so, first, come support the network. Come support Banner and Backbone. We're growing
Yes.
really fast. We've got a ton of really cool projects in the work. Melissa and Shane are working on some incredible things for themselves, and that we're going to try and work with Banner and Backbone with them on to get them more opportunities and more visibility and a huge platform that they could come into, not just with their own, but with more backing. And that's what it's all about. So come join Banner and Backbone so we can help do that. And then take it away,
That's
Melissa. Come join Melissa
it.
Corrigan.
I am going to start asking more and more for paid subs. When I was in DC yesterday, I saw the AP, routers, and NPR. Those were and a local DC television station. So that was the media on the ground, and I haven't been able to look this morning to see what exactly, if anything, routers and the Associated Press and NPR did in fact report. But if you were one of my subscribers, you were on the ground with me all day yesterday, all day. And what I would like to do going forward is to do that once a month for this sustained resistance movement, to go to DC once a month and show through my eyes, through my camera, so you can see what's actually going on. Because there was one little incident. Yesterday was an overwhelmingly positive day, but there was one little incident that conservative media may be able to take that little moment and make you think this certain thing happened. Or they may tell you a couple hundred people showed up. That's not the case. If you were watching my live stream, you know how many thousands of people were there. So I want to give that to my subscribers and to Americans in general, is live on the ground coverage that is unbiased, it's direct, it's in real time, so you can see what's going on in our nation's capital and how many people are out here resisting. That costs money. Costs money for me to go to DC every month. It costs money for me to put my time and effort into producing this coverage. So I'm going to make a ask for paid subs. Free subs are always welcome and encouraged. And if you can't afford to pay, that's okay. All my stuff will be free and open, never paywalled. But if you could just share it, share it, share it, and widen the scope that way, so more and more Americans are seeing the truth.
Thank you, Melissa. Your coverage yesterday was fantastic. Um, and I cannot wait to see what we can put out on Banner and Backbone and get all those out there too,
Yes.
and repost and cross post and encourage others to cross post things. Cross posting is a powerful tool on
Yes.
Substack that not a lot of people use or really know about. And maybe I'll do a short like demo on how to do that for folks is cross post articles. It drives traffic back to the original creator, not to you as the person who cross posted it, but it's a great way to show support for someone for free because it emails it to your subscriber
Yes.
base. It adds it to your feed on your note on your publication itself, so people see it when they go to your channel. They see it when they go to your stuff and they go, oh shit, Melissa's work is everywhere. Melissa's got this great stuff. Help her out. If you've got one subscriber, do it. If you've got zero, do it anyway. Cross post it. Just get it all out there. But yeah, please, if you can, become a paid sub for Melissa. The work she's doing is incredible. It's super important. And the more support we can get her, the better. Because then she can do it more. She can make this her
More.
livelihood. And she could go back to school if she wants to, or do all this on the ground reporting and become one of the most important and impactful local journalists in our time because she's stepping up to the plate. Help her make it happen. Help her get out there. So support Counter Story Media. Come be a paid sub if you can with her, free, and share, and all the amazing other good things. And then finally, I'll give myself a short plug. Come join me at Sick of the Shit Publications. That's my home outside of Banner and Backbone. I'm the co-founder here at Banner and Backbone with Lawrence Winterman. But Sick of the Shit Publications is my other home. I do chronic illness discussions. It's more of the cultural side at times and more on like the personal basis of how to live with chronic illnesses. I do poetry. I'm also beginning to release some of the classical music that I have recorded. And so doing, again, like Melissa too, is paid subs really help. I would love free subs. Free subs are great, but paid subs really, really help. I need to be able to put food on the table. I need to be able to support my family. But I also need to be able to put money back into the business and into
Nick
making
works
these
so
productions better.
much. Nick works so many hours. He's always like on. Always on.
I am. I'm on a lot. And like last night, I put on the 4-hour production of our replay for Banner and Backbone's Anti-Fascist Book Club. Tonight, we're doing it again. It's going to be even longer because the On Tyranny episodes are a little bit longer. But come support me. Like I've got a drive right now to get to 250 paid subscribers, and I will release the full version for free for everyone of the Flute Trio that I played with Walter Ryan the other day. And then every 50 paid subs after that, I am going to release another one of my compositions to help encourage platform growth. And so I still need about 80-ish, 80 to 90 subs to paid subs to get to that first 250 mark. I'm going to put out the flute piece for the paid subscribers here soon, probably today, as an incentive for anyone who wants to join me there. And I'll put out a small preview of the piece that's shorter for free to help encourage too. But please come join me. 50% off right now for your first year. I appreciate every single one of you who's here too. We really, really appreciate all the support, all the continued return support from everyone in the community. And then again, like I said at the very beginning of all of this, is support Banner and Backbone itself. Paid subscribers are driving our growth and our ability to add new creators with full permanent segments and their own sub-publications. Paid subscribers drive that. Paid subscribers drive our ability to do that, to work with great contributors like Melissa and Shane Urich and Ellie Leonard and Walter Ryan and Jacob Summers and Lawrence Winterman and everyone that we've had on. Christopher Goldsmith comes and supports us. Stephanie Wilson comes on. Tara Devlin comes with us. Like, we're growing an incredible network of people around here, and we would love your support as paid subscribers too, so we can help build it and bring people on as independent contractors and publish and podcasters with us who can build this into an amazing network and community that listens to y'all, because it's people powered. It's people powered progressivism. It's people powered values. It's about us. So thank
And you know
you,
what I'm gonna
everyone.
do? I'm
Yeah.
gonna send to you for the post show notes. I'm gonna send you this whole list of Navy ships, and we can encourage people to check out the USO and there are options for sending care packages to these guys for the holidays.
And also consider supporting Centered America, who are putting together care packages for homeless veterans
Yes.
and those who are in need. So go support Centered America too. They're also an incredible organization that is doing so much good for people. Melissa, it's been an incredible show. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate your time, and everyone who's come out, the 122 of you who are with us. Thank you all for being here. You power this network. We care. We listen. And the network is Banner and Backbone. This is Vet Talk. I'm Nick Perro and my friend Melissa Corrigan. And we'll be back again probably next week. I'm going to start doing the Vet Talks more regularly, hopefully, with Melissa. And that way we can continue putting out great information for y'all and keep the civilian population in the know of what's
Yep.
going on the military front. So thanks everyone for being here. Thank you so much, Melissa, and I'll see y'all again soon. Have a great afternoon, and check us out at 7 p.m. Eastern for the replay of the episodes 5 through 8 of the Anti-Fascist Book Club in preparation for tomorrow's episode, where we're continuing Timothy Snyder's On Tyranny. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you.